go like this. Spin around, stop. Double take 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then pelvic thrust. Woo! Woo! Stop on your right foot. Don't forget it. Now it's time to bring it around town. Bring it around town. Then you do this, then this, and this, then that, and this, and that, and this, and that, then that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and that.
The year was 1999. It was the end of a decade, yet the dawn of a new era of one of the most iconic television channels of our childhood. It was the year that SpongeBob SquarePants aired. Ah yes, it seems rare nowadays that you turn on Nickelodeon without a pirate asking you if you're ready. Do you remember that time before the Broadway show? Before the movies? Before the awards? Before the endless selection of merchandise and paraphernalia? Do you remember back when all that mattered was fry cooking and jellyfishing, boating school, and blowing bubbles? Oh, the bubbles. If you can believe it, Bubble Stand was one of the first episodes of SpongeBob ever aired. Feel old yet? You must have tested SpongeBob's infamous bubble blowing technique at least once as a kid, right? Did it work well for you? Did you ever wonder how or why it worked for him? We may be grown up now, but that just means we have the grown up brains to figure it out. I'm Arielle with Channel Frederator, and today I am deep diving into the world of real life logic to figure out the secrets behind SpongeBob SquarePants' bubble blowing technique. Yes, you heard that right. Take a deep breath and plug your nose, because we are plunging right down into this one. Take just one look at this sequence. It's pure absurdity. It's a cartoon. He's just performing all these random steps for the comedy, making a big deal out of something as simple as blowing a bubble. Is it absurd, though? Is it really? I think not! If we look close enough, I think we're capable of figuring out exactly why SpongeBob needs to perform each and every one of these steps in order to create these impressive and seemingly impossible bubble shapes, like ducks, a caterpillar, or a giraffe. So where do we start? My first theory is that perhaps we could find a scientific or mathematical explanation to SpongeBob's bubbles. Like maybe, probably, there's physics involved here in order to generate the perfect angle of a pelvic thrust. Or that bringing it around town would improve our vestibular input and help us balance, which would help our breathing and would get us to blow bubbles better. Somehow. And I'm already grasping at straws. I'll admit, I'm no scientist. I was an art student, so this was a tough one for me to tackle on my own. Me trying to figure out math looks more like ravioli, ravioli, give me the formuoli. What I decided to do was try and use the Facebook hive mind and posted the clip of SpongeBob performing his technique on my personal page to see if any of the smarter people on my friends list could give me something to go on. I just got a collection of laughing emojis. Thanks, guys. Well, actually, I did manage to get into conversations with 2 very intelligent people. A physicist who is the head of the science department of this word Academy of Korea, and a friend of mine who studied mathematics in college, is a teacher, draws diagrams for a living, and, I mean this in a loving way, a total nerd. Talking to them separately, they both ended up giving me the same answers. 1, that this is a cartoon with cartoon logic, in which I had to respond, yeah, I know, it's my job! And 2, SpongeBob is basically a Time Lord, and this is a ritual for him to bend space-time. Oh boy. After a very long and diagram-filled lecture over Skype, as my friend explained to me what exactly space-time was, my brain still hurts, I slowly began to realize that bending space-time was just the fancy umbrella way of saying that SpongeBob was achieving something theoretically impossible. Basically, I was back where I started. Though I appreciated their help, it seemed that the scientists thought that the technique itself was irrelevant, and then they were only fascinated with how we achieved the animal-shaped bubbles. Because bubbles don't just make shapes like that. Not unless the pressure around them or inside them pushed or pulled them in a way that made them look like that. You could be creating a black hole or a TARDIS inside of the ducks that suctions them down into that shape. Or you could be molding the bubbles into their shapes on the outside through telekinesis. The idea that he had mind powers was a thought that was immediately disregarded as non-scientific. But let's put that idea aside for later, because it's going to come back. Oh, I was also told that sea sponges don't have lungs to blow oxygen from, but this episode's kind of long-winded as it is, so let's just leave the anatomy details alone for today. He walks and talks and wears square pants. Need I say more? So I was left at a dead end, alone in my research once again, with no choice but to Google everything I could about bubbles. So many Bubbles! I searched and I searched for answers, looking up articles on bubble physics and watching a documentary on the science of bubbles. I learned that airspeed is key to blowing a bubble, that the bigger the air jet is or how wide your mouth is, the bigger the bubble will be. But you also have to account for the wand size too. I learned about the elasticity of bubbles, bubbles under water pressure, how to make a square bubble, how to make bubble rings, how to make the perfect film for the strongest bubble that will last. But I digress. This wasn't telling me anything about the all-important technique! So then, I took a step back. I knew that somewhere in this video I would want to perform the technique myself and see how it works in real life. So I had to think about how I'd be able to do that, since I'm obviously not a squishy little sponge or a flexible squid. The first half of the routine is easy, but then Spongebob goes and twists himself into all these strange shapes. A circle, a zigzag, a triangle, I have no idea what to call that, a squished down version of himself, and then he turns into a cyclops for a second. Squidward does the same thing, but in his own way because of their different body types. Notably, the weird inception pose that Spongebob does is just kind of like a crazy body knot when Squidward tries it. How is a human supposed to mimic that? Do I just try to bend myself into these shapes and do the best I can? Aha, this is where our research hits a turning point. Where did it turn to exactly? Yoga. I began to search through the wide variety of yoga poses, searching for the ones that matched closest to Spongebob and Squidward's shapes in the episode. In order of the technique, the best matching poses I found were the bow pose, or a variation of it, the big toe bow, to bend into a circle. It opens up the front of the body for better breathing, reduces mild anxiety, mild depression, and reduces stress. Perfect for relaxing oneself to peacefully blow bubbles. Squidward would need it for sure. For a zigzag, there is a chair pose, which I also found some websites called the lightning pose, which I felt seemed appropriate. It stretches the chest and shoulders, stimulates the heart, diaphragm, and abdominal organs. It builds focus, stimulates the mind, and once again, reduces stress. Seems useful. There's the well-known pose, the downward-facing dog for the triangle. Once again, it opens the chest, which I should explain means that it gives the lungs more room to expand. This pose also brings awareness to your breathing as well. So far, all of these seem to have their benefits to build some good, strong lungs and get some big bubbles. There's relevancy in that, right? There is that weird knotted pose, but since Squidward and Spongebob's form looks so different, I decided to leave that open to perform any sort of bind pose you could do. There seem to be many variations on it to make it as advanced as you want. That being said, I think this dude's pose reminds me the most of what Spongebob is doing. Yes, I did try it, and yes, my arm did collapse like a limp noodle. After the advanced pose, we squish down into what I think should be the simple squat pose, aka Malasana, especially a variation where you squish down as much as you can. Or alternatively, maybe the child's pose, because it gets the person down lower. I suppose after that last pose, its benefit is probably just to help you relax for a second. Finally, this is where things get interesting. The part where their eyes form into one and they turn into a cyclops. What's the real life equivalent to that? Is this a roadblock? I mean, I guess I could just... But no, you would think. After looking at all these poses, it got me thinking about chakras. The one cyclops eye is normally positioned at the center of the head where one's third eye might be. Also known as the sixth chakra, more commonly known as the sixth sense. It turns out that in some accounts of Cyclops lore, they got rid of both of their eyes to earn the gift of prophecy, the power of seeing as in knowing. Mind powers. They evolved into psychic types. Is this part of Spongebob's bubble blowing technique symbolically showing us that they have successfully activated their sixth chakra in this whole process? It is the last step before you actually blow the bubble and all. Turns out all the poses that I just listed are also poses that are recommended if you are trying to decalcify and reawaken your third eye. The circle stimulates the mind and balances the eye. The zigzag builds your focus. The triangle calms your chakra and your mind. The knot is the knot. It challenges your mind and body, I don't know. The squish squat helps you rest and focus the chakra. And in the end, your eye is open and you're ready to make shape to those bubble animals through use of your, wait for it, telekinesis. Yep, when it comes to mind powers, the believers say that it all comes from right here. Mind-blowing, right? I'm being real, I came into this cartoon conspiracy thinking that this whole thing would be one big joke. I never expected to come across a puzzle with pieces that fit together into a comprehensible solution. It doesn't just end there. We only just covered that collection of final steps. With all this new information, my hypotheses about math and science were shoved aside. And I was looking at the routine in a whole new light. I sought out a childhood friend of mine who is a psychic and probably the most spiritually enlightened person that I know. I asked her to walk me through the routine step by step to see if she had answers in relation to yoga or anything else we discussed. Crazily enough, she did, and it didn't take much digging either. So clearly we were on the right track to our final conclusion. When Spongebob tells us to first go like this, he strikes a variation of yoga's Lord of the Dance pose. I say variation because his and Squidward's arms are purposely held straight down when demonstrated for reasons I'm I'm unclear on. People use variations all the time when they're not as flexible or they have different body types. For instance, the squid and the sponge's different approaches to the this and that section. Next, he spins around, which I figure is an important step, because you may notice in between blowing bubbles that he will spin around each time before he creates something new. To take it back to yoga, you're probably most familiar with Indian yoga that focuses on static poses, but Tibetan yoga focuses on continuous movement, which may be a more appropriate style when you look at Spongebob's speed and energy performing all these steps. This style includes the 5 Tibetan rites, which are 5 different exercises to perform in order to generally improve your physical and mental health. Out of the 5, Spongebob just uses the first rite, which works great since it's so early in the technique. The first rite is, you guessed it, spinning around. Performing it has many benefits to list, but notably it's good for better breathing, more energy, de-stressing, mental clarity, and focus. Though I should probably point out that his technique specifically with this move is flawed, as the first rite spinning asks for you to turn clockwise with your palms down and out, while Spongebob turns counterclockwise with his hands on his hips. Bad form, Sponge. At least Squidward had his hands facing the right way. The double takes seem minor, but even the smallest movement like a head turn can take you deeper into a yoga pose. The cool thing about this pose is the importance of the number 3 when practicing yoga. There are 3 yogas: the path of action, the path of knowledge, and the path of devotion, and they are all there for the liberation of your spirit, freeing your body and mind and all that. So you double take 3 times to represent each of those. Up next, the iconic pelvic thrust. While Spongebob's approach isn't exactly traditional, we could say that about the entire thing really, there are indeed pelvic-focused poses we can do. He's just doing them in his own Spongebob SquarePantsy way. Why is stopping on the right foot important? In Indian tradition, you give gifts with your right hand for good luck, you shake hands with your right hand, you step into a new building with your right foot. It's just good juju. It creates a yang energy, you know, yin and yang. And yang is the more energetic and loud side of the two. Very fitting. Lastly, before the frantic poses, Spongebob brings it around town. Spongebob leans his whole body in Michael Jackson style, while on Squidward's turn, he rotates his hips. Yep, in yoga there are hip rotations. Everything Spongebob and Squidward do has a place in yoga practice. Most, if not all, of these poses we went through are great for breathing, which as we know is important when one is blowing bubbles. Breathing gives life and creation, and he's literally creating bubbles. The poses involve a lot of balance, and balance harmonizes with the body to create the intangible. With no balance, there are no mind miracles. He's getting in touch with his environment, his creative energies are flowing. These poses help us mentally, they strengthen our 6th chakra, and a strong, woke 6th chakra can possibly lead to telekinesis, where you can use it on important things in life, like creating animal shapes out of bubbles to impress your friends. If you're not well practiced like Squidward here, you don't defy nature, all you get is a great big bubble. And there it is. Well, only one way to find out. Let's throw together a nice mixture of purified water, dish soap, and glycerin. Yes, I know how to make a bubble mixture now. This conspiracy was a weird-ass learning experience. Jump cut to 24 hours later after I've let it sit overnight to make sure the mixture's real strong. And hi, welcome to my backyard. I've got my wand and I'm ready to awaken my hidden power of telekinesis. First go like this, spin around, stop, double take 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then pelvic thrust. Woo! Woo! Stop on your right foot. Don't forget it. Now it's time to bring it around town. Bring it around town. Then we do this, then this, and this, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and then the film popped. Let's try this again. Come on, dude. And then well, they weren't ducks. My body does not twist this way. Ha! It keeps popping before I spin. Can I at least get a regular bubble? You are useless to me! You know what? Just in case I got the Party City stuff. Come on, baby. Come on, bubbles. This is as circular as I can get. Come on! Be a duck! I am your master! Hi, I'm Arielle, also known as R2 Ninja Turtle on the rest of the internet. You should go follow me. You know, we have a lot of fun here on Channel Frederator, but you know what else is fun? Anime. And guess what? Channel Frederator has just launched a new anime channel called Get in the Robot. You should go subscribe. And now, back to my mental breakdown. Oh, baby! Oh, baby! Woo! I am doing this! Then you do this, and then this, and then this, and then that. Ah! Are bubbles too advanced? Here we go. This is intermediate level. And then... why does nothing bend to my will?
Arielle!
No, wand, come back, I need you! I lost the wand in the bubbles! I need to finish the video! You know what I've been thinking? Maybe this isn't about SpongeBob achieving a higher level of bubble consciousness. Maybe it is just a cartoon. Maybe you guys would have a better chance if you tried it at home. I actually dare you to try it. I'm gonna leave this one with 2 bubble buddies out of 5 because it didn't work well for me, but I guess that depends on the person. Both in practice and belief, you know? SpongeBob just has that endless imagination. I don't want to say it's disproven, and I also want to acknowledge that we were actually onto something there. We started from nothing, and look at all we came up with. It's that kind of detective work that makes this show fun. I'm Arielle with Cartoon Conspiracy, and if you like this video, subscribe! And remember, Frederator loves you.